Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm Abercrombie & Sanchez, PLLC. You can find us on the internet at astxlegal.com or by calling 1-888-981-7509. Your hosts are Bryan Abercrombie and Samuel Sanchez. Bryan has been practicing law for 18 years and is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in the area of family law. Sam has been practicing for 13 years, is licensed in both Texas and Florida, and is a certified mediator. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinion of the hosts. It's not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter, and it should not replace the advice of competent counsel. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast.
Hey, you remember this one, don't you? Well, Pink
yeah.
Floyd.
That's my youth right there.
Before your youth. You ever see that movie? You ever see that movie, The Wall? That was a pretty weird show.
It was twisted.
They watched it in the fraternity house in college, and after many beers, it was a very interesting experience. The Wall. Anyway. Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Abercrombie, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Sam Sanchez. Sam, how you doing?
Not too bad. Cream cheese to your bagel, my friend.
Yes. The ketchup to my hot dog, the
hot sauce
sweet relish
to your
of
chips.
life.
There you go.
The sweet relish of life. The A1 steak sauce to my tenderloin.
Dude, your tenderloins.
You're what makes
you're
life
from
worth
Texas,
living, buddy.
You don't put A1 on your steak.
No, I really don't. But you're what makes life worth living, Sam. Let's just put it that way. You're the cherry on top of the sundae.
All right,
anyway,
I like it.
No, we wanted to talk today about you're a dad. I'm a dad. We got kids. Going to schools. You got kids in higher education. I got kids in lower education. There's a case before the Supreme Court right now. If anybody's seeing the news, it involves a high school cheerleader who was suspended from all school activities or extracurricular activities for a year, because of something that she did on Snapchat after school hours. And as a dad, I just want to take a point of, I guess, personal privilege or an editorial point. As a dad, I'm thinking to myself, I was raised, to be a child of the 80s and 90s, and deal with that environment. That's what I had to deal with. Our kids today are being raised in a world where social media is everywhere, where, you can say exactly what you want right away and post it and all your friends can see it. They're growing up in a totally different time than what we grew up in. I mean, so you got this girl, she drops F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb after she didn't make the high school varsity cheer team, the cheer squad, which, you can understand that any kid who competes and tries really hard to make a team, whether it be cheerleading or baseball or softball or whatever, and doesn't make it, will be disappointed and will probably lash out. This particular girl decided to lash out to about 250 of her friends. And on a Snapchat, which if anybody knows anything about Snapchat, normally your posts on Snapchat go away after about 24 hours. And then school officials caught wind of it, and she was disciplined. So the real argument, I guess, they're talking about is the discipline, the action, if she would have said that on school grounds or during a class or stood up during class and said it, clearly that would have been outside the student code of conduct at the school, and she could have been disciplined at school. All that kind of stuff. On this particular instance, she
it wasn't on school grounds. It was on a Saturday, and it was on her own personal social media site, her account.
That creates this huge free speech issue that now apparently has winded its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. Do we know how old this case is, Bud? Do you know? I don't know how long.
Okay, so I know she's in college now, and I think when they filed it, she was like the middle of her freshman year. So it's been out there for a few years, winding its way through the courts.
Okay. So, but it creates a very interesting precedent, which is, I think, is why the court, took the case and why they're looking at it. It's involving public education. I think the landmark case on free speech in the schools is a case called Tinker versus the Des Moines Independent Community School District, and it goes all the way back to 1969, which I'm sure you remember when that came out. No, just kidding. But basically, it was involving a girl who wore a black armband to school in protest of the Vietnam War, and she was disciplined by the school for that. And the justices, in a 7-2 decision, ruled in her favor because they said it was free speech and it was not disruptive, and free speech doesn't necessarily end at the schoolhouse door. However, in other cases, they've said, okay, lewd conduct and different things like that are not necessarily free speech, and you can be reprimanded. So, there's been kind of a back and forth on this thing. So now we've got this case involving a student who said something on Snapchat that's goes away in 24 hours and did it off school grounds. So did I fill in the background well enough?
You did it perfectly. That was a great summation. So of the situation. And I would tell you, so everybody kind of gets the issue is that as a parent, right, that there legally are implications for anything that your child does. So this touches on a lot of different things, because as a child, she's a minor, right? And so she's always in somebody else's charge for the most part. Well, in this instance, she wasn't in the school's charge, right? It wasn't like she was in their care. She was on a school trip. She was at a school function. And so at what point, I guess what the court is going to consider, and what's really the topic of our conversation is, one, do you need to be careful about what your kids do? And we'll talk a little bit about that. But two, in relation to this case, is where does social media fall with your kids, right? Legally, what are the implications potentially, not just at school, but out of school, for social media and children, and how that interaction? I think this case just kind of highlights it for the court in relation to free speech, because what she's trying to assert is, she's saying, look, I have free speech, whether it's, on school grounds, off school grounds, but most specifically in my social media, I can say what I want to say. And if I'm not at school and I'm not talking to school, right, then why can't I say what I want to say? And how can you punish me for saying that? And that's a really tricky kind of a slippery slope, because if you say, okay, look, you can't punish her for things that she said on her private social media account. Okay, then what do you do with kids who are cyberbullying other kids? A school doesn't have the authority at that point. If the Supreme Court comes down and says free speech, then guess what? Everybody who wants to say something negative about somebody else on their social media, that school wants to come back in and say, we've got all these anti-bullying rules, cyberbullying. You can't do that, or I'll punish you at school. Can't do that anymore, because everybody's going to say, hey, I've got free speech. I've got the ability to say what I want to say in relation to that. And so, take that one direction, but then flip it on the other side, and you have to look at it and say, that's a fundamental guarantee in our Constitution, the right to free speech with limits. Now, I want Bryan, kind of, you encapsulated that perfectly. It's free speech within a boundary, and school and minors have even more of those types of boundaries placed upon them. So it's the boundary that's really being tested right now.
Yeah, and Justice Kagan on the court was talking about making this Tinker decision a geography test. And what she meant by that, I think, was on campus, off campus, is that the determining factor when deciding whether or not a student's conduct is worthy of discipline. Well, that's really where the kid does it as opposed to what the kid did, right? And then they're talking about how this student was not allowed to participate in voluntary activities where the members are held to a higher standard, because they're told they're going to adhere to a code of conduct, and obviously she didn't do that. So it's a very kind of they're trying to make it a narrow ruling, because I think this thing has the potential to go go crazy. Like to your point about cyberbullying, if they say if they say they open the door to everything, then yeah, the cyberbullies could go rampant, potentially. But I think one of the justices was talking about, I think it was Stephen Breyer was talking about, was it a disruption to the school when she did it? She did it, like you said, she did it on a Saturday during off time. I think some of the other cheerleaders saw it and they were upset and they told the cheer coaches, but did it really disrupt the school? That's another thing. I mean, and obviously this girl is competitive and wanted to make the squad, and she was upset when she didn't. And, Michael Jordan was cut from, I think Brett Kavanaugh said, Michael gave the Michael Jordan, he was cut from the basketball team, and I'm sure, and it hurt him 30 years later, he was still upset about it, so, obviously this has an impact on the kids. So I think it's a very, very interesting, situation, because especially if you've got kids in school and with the social media, kids have to be more careful with what they post. I mean, that goes without saying, I think, in this particular situation, but I think it highlights a good point when you're talking about kids and what they say and how what they post on social media, what they send to their friends, they has the viral effect of, going viral, and everybody knows about it. And that's probably not what they intended. I mean, granted, she sent it out to 250 people, but I'm sure she was just upset and did something in the moment, but now it's following her around. So.
Yeah, and to Justice Breyer's point, I don't think that we can apply boundaries in the digital age, because what we've created through these digital technologies, through social media, is a world with no boundaries. You can comment on somebody who lives in Australia from the States and talk shit about what they wear, or that you don't like their politics, or whatever. You don't like their choice of mate. It doesn't matter.
I don't like Australian politics, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Freaking their fashion sucks. But what I'm saying, I think that to try to say that it's going to be a geographical boundary that's going to establish the applicability of whether or not schools have the authority to do that. I mean, if you're cyberbullying somebody just because you're in your house and not at your school, the implications of it, I think, still impact the school. And when they're saying disruptive, well, what does that word mean? I mean, hell, right. I pulled fire alarms and threw smoke bombs in my school, and I'd say that was disruptive. Is you shooting off a Snapchat from your house disruptive? Well, I don't think so. But again, these bright line tests that they're trying to come up with just highlight the complexity of the issue that the court is dealing with. And really, it's not just this court and these issues. Parents are really dealing with this just like school districts are. So when we talk about legal liability for your children, right? Things that you may have to consider. Social media is one of those things that parents just really don't understand. And let me rephrase that. This parent just really doesn't understand, okay? Because I'm not doing it all the time.
There's stuff happening. There's stuff coming out every day on social media. There's new apps. There's new ways that these kids communicate that most parents, heck, you're a dinosaur now if you use Facebook. They're onto something else. They're onto something else now.
Right.
They're all the youth are onto something else. I don't even know what that is. It's probably TikTok or Instagram stories or whatever. But the dinosaurs, the old people like us, are on Facebook, right? And
sure.
There'll be something coming out tomorrow that's a more a fast way to share information.
Right, and in that, when you look at it, it's as much a tool as it is a weapon. Okay. And what I mean by that is that if a child, as an example, is cyberbullying, and they, define that term for me, okay, but they're cyberbullying another student, and that student, there's, implications, psychologically, whatever it is, that those parents want to file suit against you civilly for not properly, maintaining supervision over your child's social media. That's allowing them to cause psychological trauma to their child, intentionally inflicting emotional damage. These are the kinds of things that parents are like, what the hell are you talking about? I gave him a cell phone. I didn't know the freaking hell that I don't even know that app. Do you know what I'm saying? That's not enough. And schools
but the lawyer, to your point, to kind of counterpoint your point, the lawyer argued that same thing. is the kid required to carry the schoolhouse on their back everywhere they go and follow the rules of the school everywhere they go? Once they get off the schoolhouse grounds, is it, are you okay? Are you good to go and exercise your rights? Look, I mean, I'm sure it upset the coaches and everything like that when they've got a student who obviously was involved in a lot of different activities, saying fuck the school, fuck softball, fuck cheer, fuck everything, and firing it off. I'm sure that upsets the coaches. I mean, they want respectful kids being involved in being involved in their activities, but at the same time, you got to balance that with, this kid probably should be able to voice her displeasure for something that happened at school. I mean, she's not necessarily, to your point, I mean, she's not necessarily going after another student like, oh, Kathy over here made the cheer squad and I didn't screw her. She's awful. She's this, she's that, she's all this other stuff, and attacking her personally. She's not attacking anybody else. She's attacking the institution of the school and the activities that they provide, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, it's a tough. I wouldn't want to be a kid right now. I mean, you've got so much liability with these little devices here. There's so much potential liability and so many traps you can fall into, just by sending text messages or Snapchats or pictures or whatever.
Oh, brother, let's take it one step further. Okay, so we're in the age of the naked selfie. And so, right. You're a 16-year-old boy and there's an 18-year-old senior girl or boy, or however you want to work that calculation. And, the younger kid is sending naked selfies to this older, now of the age of maturity child. I would still consider them. I know they're men and women at that point, but they're still kids.
They're kids.
But they're getting that, and all of a sudden, it's child pornography because they share that post with one of their friends. They're
by
like,
the legal definition, it is.
And so, and parents are like, "Are you freaking serious?" Yeah, we're serious. And I mean, these are things. While it seems like it's this really simple, small, very narrow issue, and I get why the court's trying to make it that. It really is a much bigger, deeper issue that everybody's dealing with across a broad range of subjects. And so parents really need to be aware. And so I've had a couple of cases where parents are coming in and they're involved in divorce or modification, and it's all based on the cell phone. One parent is like helicopter parenting that child's phone, and going through every connection and reviewing every post. And the other one is objecting to that, saying, you got to give them personal liberty and freedoms. But the second something comes up like that, then instantly the other parent wants to say, hey, you're not supervising our kid. And look what happened. They're now getting cyberbullied, or they're now sharing naked pictures or receiving naked pictures and sharing them as child pornography. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a crazy.
Yeah, there was a whole high school football team that got in trouble in Ohio for the sharing of the sharing of the nude selfies, videos. Right?
Yeah. And so, but now, what I tell my kids all the time is that they are living life, post to post, image to image. They get their news feed digitally the second that it happens, unfiltered, unedited, and so we never experienced that, brother. And we're experiencing it now, but we're adults. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'd have seen that as a kid or had the ability to do that, I can tell you right now, I probably wouldn't have been playing football as long as I did. Coaches would have kicked my ass off of that freaking team so fast. Hey, sure. Look at this picture of Sam, like freaking stumbling drunk, and wherever. Or look, hey,
you're out of there Monday
fighting
morning
again in the parking lot. So whatever it was, I can tell you that there wasn't what we have now, which is the instant ability to capture a life and share it in whatever emotional state, in its raw kind of moment, to your point. So like, she has this raw moment of frustration and anger, and it's shared to people that she believes are her friends, which, if she's got 250 friends, she's super popular. I'm just going to tell you right now, those are not, social media is not friends. Most of the time it's like people who know you, have heard of you, or don't even know you at all. But it's easy to share because it's like people think of it as like this journal, right? Like, it's like a video journal. Like, you're sitting there just kind of documenting what's happening in your life, and putting it out into the nether reaches of the universe. But guys, it's not into the nether reaches of the universe. It's to your contacts. And in this instance,
your community.
She sent it out. Yeah, she sent it out to her community, which included other people on the team and possibly school officials. Because you know what, most cheerleaders, they sign a contract, a code of conduct that says, hey, we have the right to inspect and be a part of your social media accounts. So cheer coaches, football coaches, basketball coaches, track coaches, they're all saying, hey, I'm going to send you accept me as a friend. And so I can monitor what my teams are doing. I'm making sure you guys aren't posting drunk selfies or naked selfies.
Is that something they should be doing though? I mean, honestly, is that something that the school should be doing? I mean, at some point, these kids, these kids got to have their own lives and their own individuality and their own ability to grow up. Is it the coach's responsibility or school officials' responsibility to ride the moral police over these kids? Because I mean, look, you played sports, I played sports. I had coaches that I had coaches that I loved. I had coaches that I downright hated. And the second you got out of that field house in the afternoon, you were F this coach, F that guy, this, that, and the other thing. I hate that guy, I can't stand that guy. He's a jackass, whatever it was. And then you have other coaches that you love. If that gets posted on Twitter or posted on Snapchat or whatever, when I'm 17 years old and a junior in high school and bitching about playing time, I'm off the team. I'm done. That's it. If Michael Jordan, I'm sure he had probably something not so kind to say when he got cut from that freshman basketball team. If that was posted on Twitter, does he never make it to the NBA because he's pumping gas in North Carolina somewhere because he never got a scholarship to North Carolina because he got kicked off the team? Maybe.
Yeah, disciplinary issues. They didn't take him because he had no marks on his record.
I mean, I guess, is it the school's job to follow these kids around? And I know they sign the codes of conduct, but they're kids too. At the end of the day, they're also still kids, and they make stupid kid decisions. I mean, this clearly, surely this girl is not thinking that this was a smart decision that she made, but I guess the question is, should it follow her around for the rest of her life? It's going to, because it's a Supreme Court case. But should she have been cut from the team for an entire year because of what she said outside of school? And I guarantee you that there were probably a number of other girls that got cut from that cheer squad that probably shared that exact same sentiment, but they just didn't do it over social media.
Sure. Well, the challenge that presents, Bryan, is I think that, we have, as a society, an American society, really tasked schools with an improper role of parenting.
We're raising our kids now, right? I mean, we're trying to tell them to raise our kids.
So many parents are sending their kids to school after not raising them at all, saying, well, that's the teacher's job. That's why I pay taxes, so that you guys can do that. And so what schools have had to do historically up to this point is adopt these roles and rules that help give them the ability to try to parent these kids when they have them, and even sometimes when they don't. And so, parents are always like, there's a cyberbullying or a bullying event, and they always want to go to the school and say, why aren't you doing more? Why can't, I need you to protect my kids. And so, you got that side of the coin where parents are saying,
I guess if they're sending the texts in the lunchroom at lunch, the school can step in, right? But then like you said, you're making it a geographic test, right?
Right, exactly. So they're like, hey, I stepped over to the 7-Eleven at my lunchtime to call the teacher an asshole and tell my students that they're fucking idiots. And now I'm back on school, but hey, guess what? I did it over there. GPS pinged me over there.
School, that's like smoking on school grounds. You can smoke when you're our age. You can smoke off a school off the campus, right?
Yeah,
you go right across the street.
Oh, dude, it was the fight for us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we were like, nobody fights on school grounds, but 2 feet off of school grounds, baby, we're getting it on.
We're going at
it. Right.
Yeah.
So, schools are in that, that very difficult position. Now, I'm not going to defend them, especially in this situation, because I think she should have the right to say what she wants to do. But I'm going to tell you what, here's the deal about freedom. You have it, but you got to be willing to reap the whirlwind of the consequences of what you do. And that's my personal opinion. So she can say whatever she wants to say, as long as she understands that meant she wasn't going to be on the team and they weren't going to take her. to say that, hey, I should be able to say whatever I want to say and not comply with the code of conduct that I signed, and you can't punish me for it, I think that's double dipping bullshit personally. But
Okay.
these, that's
Okay,
not
so,
the law.
but
That's just Sam's.
could they
Sam's
have
law.
not said, okay, fine, you can say what you want, but these school officials are going to remember that she said that, and they don't have to have a formal discipline thing, but they can say, okay, we're not taking a kid like that in the future. So
Yeah,
she
I
comes
think
and
they
tries
could've.
out the next year. She comes and tries out the next year, and they say, "Yeah, too bad, so sad. We don't want that kind of attitude around here."
Yeah, I think that probably was going to happen no matter what, and probably did. But you know what I mean? Then you go look at it and say, like, hey, she commented about cheer and softball, but she wants to be a basketball player, and she's talented enough to make the squad, and she hasn't shown any kind of attitude. She's been well behaved, and the coaches are like, yeah, well, us coaches got together and said, we're not taking you, you're blacklisted from playing because you said this about the cheer squad. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have the good answer to that. I'll be honest with you. I just think that people have to understand personal freedoms and personal liberties, and especially
And
in a
personal
situation where you're talking
responsibility
about
too.
exactly personal responsibility. Because like it's like I would tell my son, I'm like, hey, you better, if you're going to pop off about somebody, you better be ready for that somebody to come back and put their fist in your face for what you said. So you just got to watch your words and know that if you're going to say them, say them. You can stand behind them. And if you want to put the whoop ass on them, great. If you're going to take a whoop ass, well, guess what? You said it. You just better be ready for it. And I think in this situation,
Right.
I feel like it's a little bit of sour grapes to have somebody say, yeah, I said it and I'm not apologetic of it. I'm just pissed off that now you blackballed me. I think, but I think what we're doing, we're letting the courts interfere in an area that really parents and schools should be taking care of this.
And I have to, I don't know anything about this girl's parents, obviously nothing at all, but you try to raise your kids, to be responsible. You try to teach them that your actions have consequences. And whenever you make statements like that, potentially that action has a reaction and there's going to be a fallout from it. Obviously there's a fallout here from it. And, while I can be sympathetic that kids, do stupid things sometimes, they're supposed to mess up their kids. And this is kind of my indictment, I guess, of social media as a whole, because once you put something out there, it's out there for all time. And, somebody's going to find it sometime. And
Yep.
Should you be, blacklisted for life for something stupid that you said when you were 15 or 16 years old? I mean, you have these people, making comments when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, and now they're 25, and these comments are coming back to haunt them because they maybe were stupid when they were kids. I mean, kids, yeah. in a way, they're not free to mess up like we were,
Right.
And I'm not saying there's some sort of blanket amnesty that you get or anything like that, but at the same time, it's tough. It is absolutely tough because parents, I mean, you can't, as much as you want to helicopter over your kids, you got to let them grow up. But at the same time, you can't helicopter over, no matter how hard you try. You can't helicopter over them every hour of every day, and they're going to do stupid stuff because they're kids and they're learning. And sometimes you got to learn. I mean, I was hard-headed. I had to learn some hard lessons.
Yeah.
Ditto here. And so, I mean, yeah, but it's a tough decision to make. And I get, I get the free speech element of it. And I get that, yeah, she ought to be able to say what she wants off the school grounds. I'm totally okay with that. And she ought to be able to pop off if she wants to. But at the same time, does she need, mandatory school discipline, because of what she said when she was out of school?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because then honestly,
she's going to get blacklisted either way. So
right. So if it's overreaching, if the school's actions, which I feel are overreaching, right? If this is something that the coach wants to deal with, the coach already said she didn't make the team. And if the coach looks at it and says, well, that was a good decision on my part, she obviously has a shitty attitude.
Well,
and so unless she grows a lot and really impresses me, she ain't making it next year either. And she probably didn't. If I was guessing, I don't think she was a cheerleader ever.
Not when a lawsuit was filed.
Right.
Not when a lawsuit was filed. I mean, and the other thing is, she could have made it right, most likely. She could have, fallen on the sword, so to speak, and made an apology. She could have done the same thing in an apology to 250 people, and said why she said it, and said that she was stupid and she's learned something from her mistake or whatever. But to my knowledge, none of that happened. So
yeah, I mean, I think like
kids don't own their action.
No, and I think, social media is definitely, it's an instantaneous act, right? It's really simple to kind of press a button, record yourself, and shoot it out to everybody you know, and everybody you don't know too. And to your point, it's not going away.
I got a 10-year-old kid who last year, well, he's 11 now, but last year he was 10, and they're doing the pandemic, they're doing the homeschooling and everything like that, and all these kids are popping off these stupid Snapchat videos to each other all day and all night. Just stupid stuff. Him trying on a bunch of hats, or kids don't think through what they're sending out there. I mean, he's trying on a bunch of hats, or he's shooting a video of himself playing a video game, or singing a rap song, or something like that. I mean, they just don't think through these things. And I'm sure it was a spur of the moment, I'm upset, screw everything, double big sticks, and that's it. But I said what I said. But yeah, I mean, when you get a little bit of time to reflect on it, and granted, my kid's 10, and this girl's probably old enough to know better. But I don't know. It's a really tough call. I mean, I understand both sides of the argument. I would probably tend to side with the free speech, just because that's the kind of guy that I am. But at the school has their point, I guess. I guess the question is, can they levy discipline for something that happens off the school grounds? So back to your cyberbullying example. Okay, they're bullying this kid nonstop after school, going home and all of this. Is that something that the school can step in and deal with?
Right. Yeah. Or let's take it a step further. You're playing an extracurricular sport, right? It's a club sport. So it's, while it's sanctioned through the school, it's not a school sport. Let's take, I don't know, freaking lacrosse. They don't have an official team. It's a club, and there's an altercation. Can the school punish somebody who's not on school grounds, right? Because it's at a park. It's playing against another club squad from a school. These are the types of things that school districts are having to wrestle with, and I get it, because parents look at it and go, I can't do anything, right? So like in this situation, whether it's, right now we're talking about student to organization, which I think makes it unique. That in and of itself does make it unique. It's not a student against a student. It's not a student against a teacher or administrator. It's a student against an organization, making a comment about whatever it was that, their impression. And I think in that instance, I think the court does have kind of, if they wanted to, they could carve out that to say, hey, not on school grounds, and it's student popping off about an organization. But let me put it to you this way. So does that mean that, and I'm going to change it, and I guarantee you would get a different response. There's a student who's Caucasian, and they're, in their pickup truck, fly fishing, not on school grounds, and the school has a Black Lives Matter organization. And he does a Snapchat talking about F Black Lives Matters, F Black Lives Matters Club, F that whole damn thing. I guarantee you the school's gonna freaking punish that kid. Guarantee you. And the kid's gonna say same thing, free speech, right? Okay, so flip it. I think if you start letting it be organizations only, then what organizations? Is it only, is it, because if it's different, if it's a school organization, right? Because cheer is like a club, I think. And right. So is it, if you're commenting about the football team, if you're commenting about the chess club, that's, part of the school, or not even the science club, or what is the, the district where you do like the decathlon team, right? That's
the academic decathlon.
Yes, academic decathlon. So what organization, are you going to limit it to only off-campus organizations? Are you going to limit it to clubs? Are you going to say they can't comment about teams, or they can, or it doesn't matter? And if it doesn't matter, then dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, like I was a hell-raising kid. if I had social media, dude, my whole school would have been on blast. I'd have been freaking trashing all kinds of people and organizations. And so I'm just saying, like, to your point, Brian, they're kids, right? You don't always know that what you're saying or what you're doing is stupid. You may just do it anyways. And, even if you do that, there are implications from it. So, how does a school operate in that environment? And if they don't control anything, does it devolve into this chaotic situation of like, people getting all kinds of sideways? Because I guarantee you, if you're on the football team and somebody who doesn't make the team wants to pop off about the football team, you're probably gonna have some problems. Maybe that was just back in my day, but back in my day, you talk shit about our team and you're probably gonna get your ass kicked in the parking lot. So, do you know what I'm saying? So like, these are the kinds of things that I think schools are wrestling with daily and trying to figure out, like, hey, we have to have a threshold of behavior, but who sets it? And if they're like, if parents aren't going to set it, well, we're going to try to set it. And I think that's even more what the court is really wrestling with, is free speech and like this behavioral threshold. Yeah.
Right. When do they set the, if you're popping off at a football game, if you're popping off as a student athlete playing in a football game, that I think you can probably be disciplined for, if you're doing something as representing the school. What if you're a student fan in the stands? What if you're a student fan in the stands?
Harassing the other side. Yeah.
Right. I mean, are you subject to discipline there in that situation? I mean, I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting decision. I agree with you, brother. I think that, it seems like a simple issue, but it really has far-reaching implications. No, either way that they take it. It's really good that the court.
So from a lawyer, as a cautionary tale, we got Life 360, we got Bark apps all over our kids' phones. Monitor your kids' social media, monitor what they're saying, monitor what they're doing, and talk to them about the far-reaching implications of what they do, because it can, unfair or unfair, it can follow them around for a long time after they do the act, even if they're 11 years old when they do it. So, it's something that we're trying to teach these kids to be good human beings, right? And so, having respect for schools, having respect for their friends and things like that is probably something they should really consider doing at, on their social media posts and things like that. But kids, like I said, kids are kids and they don't always think about that. And sometimes parents, don't have as much control over kids as they would like to have. And sometimes it's not necessarily their fault. So it's a tough world these kids are growing up in. And like I said, it has far-reaching implications. I'm at a loss. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what this decision is, because, I worry about that stuff every day, because, you never know what your kid's going to do, and you never know what it's going to mean. You hope you raise them right, and you hope you teach them right from wrong. You hope you teach them to make the right decisions, but kids don't always make the right decisions. That's just life.
Yeah, very true.
Our learning
very true,
process.
Agreed. So I guess we'll find out.
So how do they get a hold of you, Sam? If somebody wants to come talk to you about a legal issue, how do they get in touch with you?
So I am obviously down in the Miami area, also in Dallas, Fort Worth. You can reach me at 817-914-5470, or you can email me directly at ssanchez@astxlegal.com, or visit our website at www.astxlegal.com.
And I'm in the Houston Woodlands area, but we also have an office in Austin. And I can be reached at 281-374-4741 or at babercrombie@astxlegal.com. You can always find us out on the internet. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We also have a webpage at astxlegal.com. So you can reach us there as well. But Sam, thank you for the time today. I think this is an interesting discussion. I think we definitely haven't heard the last of it, and we're probably going to see a lot more of this stuff coming down the road.
Yeah, I would agree, brother. Good talk.